Well, welcome everybody to the 2023 State of Enrollment Technology. This has been a really fun research project that the Element and Enrollify teams got to collaborate on actually over the last 6 months. This has been a long time coming. So we're really excited to unveil some of the more interesting findings from our report with you all today. And then what we actually have is we've got the full report. It's actually being in the final stages of design right now, and we'll be shipping that off to you early next week. Everyone who is registered for this webinar today will get first access to the report, and folks who have not registered will get access later next week. So again, this is just a teaser, if you will, of what's to come. Our rough agenda for the day. Oh, we've got someone raising their hand. You want to just make sure they can hear us, Mallory, or there's no issues?
Absolutely.
So our quick agenda for the day is we're going to talk a little bit about this report, why we decided to partner and create it, dive into some of the more interesting findings about the report. And then we actually started this report, we started working on it well before the world was buzzing about ChatGPT and generative AI. But we would obviously be quite remiss if we didn't cover a little bit about how this this technology that's quite literally unfolding kind of before our eyes today, how that's continuing to affect and will continue to affect higher ed marketing and enrollment management professionals. So just a little bit about us as we go ahead and get started here. First and foremost, my name is Zach. If you're not familiar with me, I'm the founder here at Enrollify. If you're not familiar with Enrollify, we produce a lot of content, primarily in the form of podcasts. We've got the largest podcast network of higher ed marketing and communications shows. And really our goal is quite simple. We like to help educate folks working in marketing communications in any capacity with new insights, new trends, essentially equip you with everything that you need to know about the latest and greatest in marketing communications and technology. And then we've got Mallory, who is the VP of Marketing at Element451. Many of you have probably seen Mallory present because I feel like at every important event in higher ed, like Mallory's presenting, and she does such an incredible job distilling complex ideas, making them accessible to all. She's a strategist, she's an innovator, and she's doing some incredible work right now at Element451. Dan is a new face, Dan Sanchez here. He's not a new face if you like content marketing and spend a lot of time on LinkedIn like I do. I feel like I've followed Dan for many months, if not the last couple of years, and was absolutely delighted when I saw that he was joining the Element team. Dan worked in marketing at a private college. He's done a lot of podcasting. He's worked at the other SaaS companies. And he's really just kind of like a wealth of knowledge as it comes to content marketing and all things inbound. So really thrilled, Dan, to have you join us. Is this your first higher ed webinar ever, or probably not? You probably did some back at the school.
First higher ed webinar. I've done some conferences, but this is the first webinar.
Okay, well, first times means it's also going to be the best. So that's really exciting. We're really thrilled to have you all join us today. We're going to kind of tag team this presentation. Our goal is to make it as dynamic and as fun as engaging as possible. And again, if you have questions or comments, just go ahead and drop them right in the chat. With that, yep.
Sorry, not to interrupt you, but it sounds like that chat might be disabled for some folks. So
it is. Okay. Great. Let me ping somebody on my team and we'll get that enabled as quickly as possible. Mallory, why don't you just walk us through a little bit about why we're here today, why we decided that producing this report was important.
Absolutely. So, hey everyone, it's so nice to see all of you. This report, when I joined the Element team about 6 months ago, was already underway. And I was honestly so thrilled to hear that we were partnering with Enrollify to do this type of research in our industry. I've been working in higher ed since about 2008 and have definitely seen so many different types of technologies come and go over the years, so many different tools that are out there, all-in-ones, one-point solutions, et cetera. And never have I really seen any industry baselines for a lot of this stuff, right? There's just no easy way to understand industry-wide how higher ed is approaching marketing technology, what different institutions are spending, breaking that even further down by institution type. We just really wanted to fill this gap, right, where we could not find research for ourselves. So, just anecdotally at AMA last year, I was starting to think about this. We were starting to talk about this research, and I happened to be seeing in a presentation that was comparing higher ed marketing budget allocation to corporate marketing budgets. And it was striking to see the difference in how we allocate things versus other industries. Corporate spends 26% of their marketing budget on technology and 25% on staff. It's almost even, right? About a quarter each. Whereas in higher ed, the chart was completely different. Staff spend was more than 50% of the budget, and only 3.2% was on technology. It was just wild to see that difference. And as I was sitting there, I was so grateful that we were doing this, because now we're going to get a little more insight into what that 3.2% is. But I have a feeling, Zach, that this is what is contributing to a lot of the staff burnout and retention challenges that have been heightened since the pandemic, right? Our priorities and spend feel very out of whack when you compare it to other industries and corporate. And my suspicion is one of the use cases of this research is going to be arming leaders with the data that they need to generate more support for marketing technology. I don't think they're arranging their budgets so that they only are spending 3.2% on tech. I think that it's a matter of building the awareness internally and getting other stakeholders on board and highlighting how this technology helps teams become more productive.
Yeah, very, very well said. And just a quick note, folks, I fixed the chat issue. So sorry about that. Please use it. And it looks like a couple of you are already using it, which is what we love to see. So yeah, as Mallory said, really sort of that was the impetus for why we even decided to spend the time and energy and resources it takes to produce a report like this. Last kind of note here too is that we were really interested in sort of like the feature sets that folks like you all care most about with respect to your enrollment marketing technology, and really want to understand how, regardless of the CRM that you use, what specific tools you find most helpful, and then also the tools that you think need the most improvement in your respective space. So in this first kind of section here, we really want to highlight these three takeaways, right? So as we spent time obviously distributing the survey, also sort of analyzing the results, the three sort of biggest takeaways from our perspective, the takeaways that we thought were most exciting, revolved first and foremost around CRM use and satisfaction, right? So for those of you that do have CRMs, how often are you using it? How satisfied are you with the features that are included in your CRM, et cetera? Number two, that the feature set needs and desires, right? So where are the gaps? What are the gaps that exist in marketing technology today? And how do we help remedy and fill those gaps as quickly as possible? And then finally, what are people actually spending? So Mallory talked about this a little bit, but what are folks actually spending on enrollment marketing technology, both in terms of an investment in monetary means, but also in time, right? How much time are individuals spending using marketing technology in their day-to-day roles as admissions counselors, as marketing and communications professionals, et cetera? So first and foremost, the CRM use and satisfaction, the big kind of takeaway here, questions again that we asked respondents. First and foremost, what CRM are you using, right? So what are the core CRMs that higher ed institutions use? How satisfied are you with your respective CRMs? What are the features that you love most about your CRM? And then again, what are the features that are falling short? First and foremost, one of the exciting stats that we stumbled upon is that 85% of higher ed marketing and admissions teams do use a CRM. Now there is we just want to call out a little potential bias here is if you're going to fill out a survey entitled the 2023 State of Enrollment Marketing Technology, you probably have a CRM, you probably have some marketing technology that you are already using. So this is probably skewed a bit high, but this is much higher than the numbers that we were seeing even just a few years ago in the industry, which is quite encouraging. Dan, I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to add here based off of your past experience as well.
In my past experience, like, we had just rigged together a different CRM than what our admissions team was actually using. It was a small college using Populi, which was a student management system, but also did okay at admissions. They were using it as marketing, and it didn't do well at that at all. So we had actually rigged together quite a few things at that point, and it worked for a time.
Worked for a time. Yeah, famous last words there. Another just kind of interesting stat here is that 66% of marketers without a CRM, so the folks that responded to our survey, work at a private institution. I don't know that this is particularly shocking to anyone, right? Private institutions tend to have smaller budgets, but what I think is revealing, and Mallory touched on this a bit just a couple of minutes ago, is that oftentimes people that are in these smaller contexts are wearing zillions of hats, right? And arguably these individuals need marketing technology more than the institutions that do have 50-person marketing and communications teams, or 80-person admissions teams. So it's just revealing that even in 2023, folks at these private institutions, smaller shops, don't have access to the tooling that they need to be successful. So we wanted to kind of dive in a little bit deeper here and understand, again, what are the CRMs that folks are using. So this is, again, respondent data. So 50% of the people that responded to this survey are using Slate as their marketing, their core marketing CRM. Interestingly enough, though, only we asked folks sort of to rate their respective CRM for their marketing tools, and Slate got a 2.1 out of 5-star rating for its effectiveness at marketing. And then 51% of respondents rated their satisfaction with their CRM at just a 1 to 5 out of 10. So over half of the industry, right, is dissatisfied with their current CRM, which is, again, just quite revealing. I don't know, Mallory or Dan, if you want to chime in or add anything here.
I think that, one thing I'll say is market-wide, my guess is the percentages do look a little bit differently. Again, it's worth noting this is based off of those who responded to our survey. When we look at the landscape, about a third, I suspect, of the market is using Slate. About another third is using Salesforce and TargetX, and then the other third is kind of everyone else, and Element451 included. I think some of the challenge is that some of these CRMs on this list were not developed specifically for higher education, and marketing and admission teams have had to kind of shoehorn their language or processes into a tool that's been built for B2B or something completely different. My suspicion is that's contributing a big contributing factor to these lower ratings. I think perhaps the second thing is that some of this technology is pretty old and was developed more than 10 years ago. And so the technology debt that is underlying and supporting the user interface, the user experience, just hasn't caught up to 2023 yet.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more there. And we were curious too, like, how does this shake out by institution type, right? What sort of satisfaction are we seeing if you're at a private small institution versus a large public institution? And so kind of one of the more interesting takeaways here is that public schools, community college, and graduate schools are least satisfied with their CRMs, which again isn't necessarily super surprising. If you're a large public institution, you might have zero say over your CRM, right? That might have been made by a person far senior to you, and you might it might not be serving your needs as an admissions counselor or as a director of marketing communications. And then graduate schools typically tend to be the most under-resourced division on campus. So again, not too surprising here. Another kind of interesting takeaway that we stumbled upon here is we were interested in understanding, again, it's one thing to ask about the CRM in aggregate, right? But what about each individual tool that exists in your respective CRM? So we asked folks to rank their satisfaction with each of their tools as a part of their CRM on a scale of 1 to 5. And this is where things get a little interesting. So the lowest scoring tool sets, right, are digital advertising tools and social media publishing tools. And again, this is sort of interesting because historically, right, the idea that digital advertising tools and social media tools would be included in a CRM, right, might not have been particularly intuitive, right, or not necessarily sort of table stakes. So Dan, I know that we went back and forth on this a little bit yesterday about whether digital advertising tools and social media publishing tools should even be included in a CRM. So I don't know if you want to share a little bit more about your thoughts on that, and we can go back and forth and riff a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, digital advertising tools make a lot of sense because there's a lot of data. It's very trackable from AdWords or Facebook. You can pass the URL params and the types of creative into your CRM. That way you can actually track, attribution from the click through of the ad all the way through student, all the way through graduation, if you're getting really ambitious. And that's cool. The social media one for me feels a little bit more disconnected. I know it's possible to pass GTM tracking over to the CTM where they fill out the form and stuff. But for the most part, I find social to be kind of a dark funnel anyway. Like it's kind of a black box, only some bits and pieces of data. And the really important stuff going on, like the really juicy comment and exchange between your Facebook page manager and the student, well, you can't track that. And because the most important things can't be tracked, I'm like, the little pieces that you can track, it's just like, that's one tool that I'm okay with being on the outside. I don't care if it's in a buffer because honestly, the data was only so-so to begin with. Yeah.
It's interesting. When we were working through some of this data together, what I thought could be going on here is we've seen players like Element451, also players like, HubSpot sort of enter the space and redefine what it means to be a CRM. So for those of you who are familiar with HubSpot, you'll remember that they started off as just marketing software, right? Like marketing automation software was their core competence. They are now loud and proud everywhere over, even advertising in airports now, that they are a CRM company, right? And I think that there could be the shift happening in user expectations that no, if a CRM needs to include every tool that I might need to do my job, and if my job is to share content on social, to drive people to my open house, to be able to follow up with them from that open house, to be able to understand and track how many people from that open house started and completed an application, then a CRM absolutely needs to include social media publishing tools and digital advertising tools. So there could be, this data suggests that maybe there is sort of this new sort of definition of CRM that especially younger people are kind of, as they work their way into the space, coming to terms with. Folks don't want to have to use multiple systems. They want everything that they need to do to effectively do their job to be accessible through one. So perhaps that's something that's going on here. We got pretty interested and excited about this one for sure. And as we've noted on a little bit already here, in terms of dissatisfaction, like this is a quite jarring stat, right? 50% of respondents are dissatisfied with their CRM's reporting and analytics. And just anecdotally, Enrollify has a sister agency who works with many colleges and universities of all shapes and sizes. And the single biggest hourly burn that agency has in any given month is on reporting, right? Because everyone wants reports. Everyone wants the report that they need to show leadership, right? The impact of their respective campaigns or their respective work. And what this data suggests is the systems, the tools that are supposed to help us do this, right? And they're supposed to make it easy to do it are consistently failing. And perhaps this is a point of friction between how to use the system, people not being effectively trained in how to use these CRMs, right? And there not being enough time and budget to effectively train people to use these CRMs or maybe it's a gap in how this technology has been built. Mallory or Dan, I don't know if you have any comments you want to add onto this point in particular, because it was quite jarring.
Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts, but Dan, please jump in.
All I got to say is I think a big contribution to that is using something that wasn't built for enrollment. You have to work so much harder. Like HubSpot has to be modified so much, Salesforce so much in order to make it give the reports that people need in higher ed, because it's a very specific set of data. So like every time you have to customize something, that means the whole reporting structure has to be customized, which means the data has to be manipulated weird ways in order to get it. So I can understand that this is a low ranking one just because the data is hard. It has to be structured not perfectly, but pretty close to perfect from the very collection, how it gets put in there, and then how you pull it back out is difficult when it's not made for the thing that you do.
And so I think, Zach, this goes back to what you're just saying about this growing interest in an all-in-one solution, because it's not hard to connect the dots from, if I have all my data in one place, therefore I'm going to be able to collate that data and find insights in it so much easier. And Wilson in the chat here is even commenting like, right, whatever institution Wilson works for is also looking for that silver bullet platform that can connect it all together, from the PPC spend to what the communications going out of the CRM. And it can be expensive to do because it is difficult. But I'll just add on this point about reporting specifically, outside of this research. Again, I've been an Element for about 6 months, and I've been doing a lot of qualitative research with our buyers. And a key success factor of using a CRM is research and data-based. It is the ability to produce what people term as president-ready reports, because enrollment and marketing leaders are not just being asked to look at the data and do something with it to improve their work, but they have to report on that data. They have to report on it to their team, who needs a different view and insights than the other units around them, who need different information than the cabinet or the president or the board of trustees. I mean, it goes all the way up to the top. And there is such a spotlight on enrollment and retention challenges right now. I can guarantee at least once a quarter, if not probably monthly, someone is knocking on the people's doors who are in this webinar right now saying, I need a report on X, Y, and Z. And Zach, we were kind of talking about this a little bit yesterday. You brought up a point that this isn't just a burn, right? This isn't just like a lot of manual effort that's probably taking place in like Excel spreadsheets internally. But if that team is working with an agency partner, they're probably calling that partner frantically saying, help, get me the data, right? And that's going to burn so much of the time that you might have that agency on retainer month to month, just doing the reports for the boards and the cabinets. And doesn't it just, at least in my mind, I'm like, I should just be able to click a button. If all the information's here, I should just be able to click a button and have it spit out what I need. And I just continue to sit here and scratch my head about why this is so difficult to achieve.
Yeah. I mean, and it's clear, it's very clear that this is the core point of friction for folks when it comes to the tooling that they do have. Speaking of kind of data analytics and other tools that exist in an individual's or an institution's CRM, we wanted to sort of understand overall like satisfaction, again, on the scale of like 1 to 5, right? How are people ranking these tools? And one of the things Dan noted yesterday as we were talking through some of this data was like, wow, like overall, like performance is like really bad. Right? Like, meaning this is a scale of 1 to 5, right? And look at these averages, right? We're in the 2s and 3s. There's a couple times where, like Element creeps up to 4 for texting tool, but like there is a lot of room for improvement here, right? Across the industry with respect to individuals' satisfactions with these tools. So some super interesting insights there. I want to move on and talk a little bit about like feature set needs and desires, right? So what are the gaps that currently exist in our CRMs today? How do these feature gaps vary by user sets of each CRM? So by the technology that folks are currently using. And how does satisfaction vary based on whether the CRM is being used for marketing purposes or admissions purposes? So this is kind of the next section that we want to dive into here. One interesting sort of insight as well that was garnered through our data was that 76% of institutions using CRMs for marketing and admissions rely on more than one CRM, right? So it's very, very common that people are using multiple systems, not just generally, right? This isn't your SIS. This is 76% of institutions using CRMs for marketing and admissions relying on an additional CRM, at least one additional CRM to do that. When we talk about spend, we talk about waste, we talk about sort of like the left-hand data, not knowing what the right-hand data is doing. This is the friction, right? You've got half your communications happening in one system, half of them happening in the other. And chances are you're still waiting for IT to build that integration that they promised 5 years ago, right? That's the reality that folks are living through here. So this is, again, just a jarring stat. So if this is your reality and you feel this pain, just for what it's worth, you're not alone. And this is clearly an industry-wide problem. Furthermore, 75% of public schools use more than one CRM, while only 40% of private schools use more than one CRM. Again, I think this speaks to just the size of the institution, right? And the various reach that an institution might have. Any quick comments, Mallory or Dan, on any of these points?
Yeah, it reminds me of like when we implemented a marketing CRM in our small private institution using Popula's admissions. What's funny is that because generally marketing CRMs that can handle marketing better means they're just better at communication, period. So you know what happened is the marketing CRM started creeping up and eating the admission cycle because it was just a better tool at communications, but the reporting became harder because, it's not used to spitting out that kind of information. So more rigging had to happen. Eventually that CRM started using for internal student communication because, again, it was just better at communication. So I could see where people are managing both, but you still have to keep the admissions one for all the actual record keeping because the marketing CRM can't.
Yeah. Really, really great points there. We were curious, right, based off of the CRM that you currently use, right? What are the specific features that you think need to be improved in that CRM? So these are the top 2 features requested based off of, again, current CRM user. So if you're currently using Salesforce, for instance, right, the top 2 features that you all want to see, either better versions of existing products and or better products to begin with, if products don't exist here, is full funnel reporting and attribution, and then an affordable texting tool, right? These are the 2 most requested features for folks that are using Salesforce for marketing and communications. So again, this is just super interesting data. So if you are using any of these current CRMs and you see these features, right, and you're like, yep, me too, these are my top 2 as well. I mean, just food for thought, go and contact your rep at this respective organization and say, hey, I was listening to this webinar. I saw that other people like me are also really in need of these better features. Just want to, be loud here and let you know that, raise my hand and say, I want this too, right? Mallory and Dan could probably speak to this more than I can, but when software companies are told by their users, by lots of users, that they want a specific, a particular thing, or they want a new feature, that gets prioritized on the product roadmap, right? More than some other things. So just a little bit of encouragement for you all today to go to your respective organizations, respective CRMs, and ask for these if they align with your feature requests.
That, can I just say, it really hurts my heart to see better email tool on the slide so much. It just hurts my heart. Like, this should be the easiest, the best. Like, I'm sorry.
Better email tool, better email analytics, better email tool, better email. Yeah. Haven't we been talking about email for 20 years now?
I know. MailChimp's had a drag and drop builder since 2012, 2010, maybe. I mean, this has been like, and then everybody has it. Like, this is commodity tool. You can pay $20 for a small business CRM and get a drag and drop builder email tool these days. So it's kind of like, come on, guys. I'm pretty sure there's like open source code for this now. Where is it?
Yeah, this is discouraging. Another moving along here, just in terms of other feature set needs and desires. So the biggest areas for improvement, we're touching on email tools already, which again is quite sad, but improved reporting and analytics comes in as number one. So at the end of the day, we've talked about this several times already. People just, you all need better reporting. You need better analytics in order to understand how the dollars that you're putting in are coming out, right? And everyone needs this. You need this data to be spliced in a zillion different formats, right? And again, it's not, higher ed is much more complicated than a SaaS company, for instance, right? And the kinds of reporting that you all need is quite frankly just a little bit more sophisticated. So, however, there's no excuse. It's 2023. Budgets are waning. Your team is in many cases waning. You need to understand that limited resources that you do have are being maximized as efficiently as possible. So again, biggest area of concern here: reporting analytics, followed by social media management tools. Again, I think this might speak to this understanding, this growing desire for there to be this all-in-one solution, or as some folks in the industry say, software needs to move to an all-on-one solution, meaning like software should be able to be integrated with, your CRM should be able to integrate with any tool that you use, right? All that data should be able to be passed into your kind of core, primary system of record. And that's where things are moving. So if you use a CRM right now that does not have open APIs, you are not going to be set up for success in the long run, just full stop, right? If your tool does not connect and play nicely with other tools, right, it's just a recipe for increased disaster down the road. So go to your CRM that you're currently using and make sure that they have open APIs that you can play with and your organization can play with. Mallory or Dan, anything else you want to just chime in on here?
Hit the next slide. It's going to have all the data that proves exactly what you
there we go.
said.
Yeah.
Like, boom. This is not, I mean, for all the points and reasons you just said, this is why this matters. Like, being able to integrate with third parties is critical. That is higher ed. Like, a week doesn't go by without somebody referencing how siloed this industry can be, how siloed campuses can be, especially if you are in a very large decentralized university. And the ability for colleagues to even like connect with each other, let alone the data, be able to connect, right? It can be really, really challenging. And that is why, right? Open AI or APIs, integration with Zapier.
Yep.
I know at Element with customers, we will consult and build custom integrations when necessary. It's just really critical. Otherwise, you are just getting small little snapshots about what's happening within your student population, and you're going to miss the really big insights that could literally keep the doors open within the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's even. I think open API is even just like table stakes for a lot of things. There's some things where I'm like, I need it to go above and beyond open API. I need direct native integration because, not just because someone has an integration doesn't mean it integrates well. It might only go one way. You might not get information back from that system. That stinks. You didn't know. You just thought it integrated. Sometimes you need full integration. Sometimes you just need it to be native. Analytics, sorry, you got to have it to be native. You can't have a third-party analytics tool because it can't sync hard enough to the actual data. Marketing automation, specifically, you need to be able to sort and segment and send out things through all kinds of different channels based on everything that's in the file. It's hard to find a good enough integration that makes that work well. And every time I try to sync complex databases, you just lead to complex issues.
Yep. You couldn't have said it better myself. We're going to move pretty quickly through these next few slides, folks, just because we do really want to respect all your all's time. But again, as a reminder, all this data is coming to you in a beautiful report early next week, either Monday or Tuesday at the latest. You'll have that full report with all this data and loads more in your inbox, as well as the recording of this webinar and this slide deck here. So a couple quick things I want to just point out here is specifically around the admission CRM, so the tool that folks are using for admissions. We asked them, again, like scale each tool between 1 and 5 stars. And again, similar to the marketing CRM, these are really low numbers, right? So again, a lot left to be desired with respect to how these tools are performing. One quick comment here that we thought was interesting: the events module and landing page tools and admission CRMs were rated 25% less favorably than the equivalent tools in the marketing CRM, which, as anyone who works in admissions knows, events tend to be your bread and butter. Landing pages tend to be your bread and butter. So there seems to be this deficit in expectation around the effectiveness of these tools in your admissions CRM. So the last sort of like big takeaway for this report here is around investment, right? So how much money are folks actually spending on enrollment marketing technology? How much time are folks spending using enrollment marketing technology? So overall, 43% of institutions spend less than $50,000 a year on marketing and admissions technology. Again, this is a jarring stat, right? As Mallory had talked about earlier, but also just because as your teams are stretched and continually and more is added and more is added and more is added to your plate, right? This, quite frankly, is just a very, very small number compared to, as Mallory again noted, what corporate is spending on this kind of technology. It is night and day, folks. And so if you feel stretched and if you feel like you don't have access to the tools that you need to do your job, again, you're not alone here. Like this number is very, very, very small compared to what similar organizations of size to your respective institution are spending in other industries. Melly, I don't know if you want to add anything quickly there or no? Okay, great. Just gonna pop through these last few slides here, folks, and then we're gonna end with a quick little overview of AI. But in terms of enrollment MarTech investment, again, overall, 43% of schools are spending less than $50K a year. This is how this breaks down by institution type. So four-year public schools, right? 34% of four-year public institutions spend less than $30,000 a year on marketing and admissions technology. And only 10% of four-year private schools do. 48% of four-year private institutions spend between 50 and 150K a year on marketing technology, right? Which is interesting. You've got smaller institutions kind of spending more on average than larger institutions when it comes to both marketing and admissions technology. Graduate schools, 80% of graduate schools spend less than 50K a year on marketing and admissions technology. Again, not too shocking. These tend to be underutilized, under-resourced divisions on campus. But again, graduate marketing and graduate enrollment management right now is like, people are looking at grad to kind of be this hero, right? As this enrollment cliff approaches, as other traditional sort of undergraduate programs wane in popularity, folks are looking at grad to make up the difference, right? And so in actuality, there should be more spent on grad marketing and grad enrollment management from here on out. More so, more should be spent in the next 5 years and we're spent in the previous 5 years. So if you're at a grad school right now and you're looking for some data to sort of reinforce to your leadership that new investment in grad is important, take this, right? And bring it to leadership. And then finally, 66% of community colleges and trade schools spend between 10 to 50K a year on admissions marketing and technology. All in all, folks, higher ed's not spending enough on marketing and admissions technology, right? With respect to the needs that higher ed has for that technology to be helpful, right? In recruiting, attracting, engaging, and ultimately recruiting and delighting the next generations of students. This is a drop in the bucket, right? Compared to what other sectors are spending on this technology. And the last thing I'll just say on this point too is one of the things I think is really helpful to remember is that your customers, right? Your prospective students are the same customers that these other brands, these larger corporations are targeting, right? And if they deliver an exceptional friction-free experience, right? Because they have access to incredible technology, your students are going to expect that same kind of experience from you. And if you don't have access to this, you can't create those experiences. So just keep that in mind too as you talk through all of this with leadership. Last, I guess, couple points here in terms of time spent too. Folks are 35% of higher ed administrators are using more than 7 marketing and admissions tools every week, right? Folks are spending a lot of time using different tools, and close to 50% spend 10 or more hours every week working in these tools. So you need these tools to work for you because you're investing so much time and energy into using them on a very regular basis. Mallory, you want to just spend the last few minutes here talking a little bit about AI?
Yes, I would love to, because it's here. right? AI in higher ed is here to stay. It's no longer a question of if, it's just here now. And that's in large part, I think, because of the free release of ChatGPT, just makes this a bit more accessible. Teams, I truly believe that embrace AI and embrace it early are going to be the teams that thrive. And while we didn't include questions about AI in our survey, we really can no longer talk about marketing technology without addressing what is, really once in a generation shift here. So that leads me to this very first insight on this slide. Coming out of the pandemic, there's been a lot of drain of talent and resources, and we know higher ed is historically under-resourced, and we're just struggling to either keep talent or people are wearing so many hats. I've mentioned that I've done a lot of interviews over my career with folks, and back in 2008, it was about the rise of social media, and in 2012, it was about responsive web design, and now it's about artificial intelligence. And it really doesn't matter what the tech shift is. At the end of the day, marketing and enrollment leaders are trying to figure out how they can make their staff more productive. And that is through reducing things that are really time consuming and require a lot of manual labor, like content generation, right? People want their team of 3 to feel like a team of 10. And I think this is where AI is going to have the impact. It's going to make that team of 3 actually feel like a team of 1,000. And so, as you can see here, AI enables 3 really key things. It's like your co-pilot. It's your Robin to your Batman. These generative AI tools are going to help small teams create really personalized and target content for students. And we've been talking about marketing technology now for 45 minutes, okay? What good is all of this technology? What good is the best CRM with the best email tool or SMS tool if you don't have the content to support it? And producing content is hard. Producing variations to test is hard. Generating fresh ideas is hard. I mean, it's so challenging. It's so time consuming. So I think this is where AI is going to come in very quickly and give us different tools and ways of producing content at scale. And that obviously ties to efficiency, right? It's going to help reduce that manual load that is needed to achieve all of this work so that teams can focus on the activities that are actually of the highest value. So you can ask AI to rewrite your email in a different tone, or take that email and shorten it for SMS and Twitter, and it can do that within seconds. The third point here is around access. And this is, while third on the list, maybe the most important point here. These tools are going to help us communicate better and better support our students. And that's particularly students with mental health challenges, disabilities, and language barriers. So I think an easy example is that ChatGPT can help you translate into other languages, and chatbots that are powered by AI are, going to be able to have a huge impact on student persistence. It'll allow teams to have a more proactive approach because the chatbot can help to identify the behaviors or the circumstances that might be early indicators of need or risk, and then escalate when it's necessary for intervention. So that's allowing us to better support students and ensure they're getting the guidance at the right time when they need it, in the communication channel that they prefer. I want to mention for a really quick moment on the next slide at Element451, we've just rolled out 2 new really exciting features that are actually powered by the same tech behind ChatGPT. The first is Copilot. This is a content generation and copywriting tool. It's going to help teams with that higher personalization approach. You feed Copilot information and it can change the tone, it can summarize it, it can shorten it, help you ideate, all of those great things. And then we've been talking a little bit about chatbots. BoltBot is our conversational AI-powered chatbot. And because OpenAI is behind it. It understands complex questions and can use semantic search and understanding even intent to provide really relevant answers. So I know we're at the end. I don't want to spend, any more time about this, but tomorrow we are doing a webinar on that chatbot and how it impacts student engagement and retention. And so you're obviously all invited to join us. I'm clicking send right now in the chat room. You can sign up for that webinar. If you're not available at 2:00 tomorrow, I still recommend signing up because we'll send you the recording if it's something you're interested in. I'm going to put a very firm stake in the ground, Zach, on my last insight here. Prompt engineering is the #1 skill to master in 2023. I see people complaining about the output of ChatGPT left and right on social media. I mean, it's just the butt of every content joke out there right now. People lamenting that it got their bio wrong, or that they've recently received email copy or website copy, and it was so obvious ChatGPT wrote it. The question I want to ask in every single one of those situations is, what was your prompt? Because this idea of garbage in, garbage out. If we're not feeding the tool the right stuff and constructing the prompt in the right way, we are not going to get a quality output. And because this is such an important skill set, we're also doing a series of webinars at Element around this very topic. We've already done one. We're doing one next week. You can find all of that on that same webinar link. I think that, anybody who works in communications and marketing needs to be paying attention to this, and very, very quickly.
Love it. This is wonderful stuff, Mallory, Dan, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that we are just 5 minutes over here, but hey, it's still not an hour webinar, which is what is sort of like more common these days than not. So 15-minute webinar, we'll take it. If folks have questions, we can hang out in the chat for the next few minutes here. If you got to go, we totally understand. Thank you all so much for being here. Again, you'll get the report early next week, along with a link to this recording, as well as the slide deck. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thanks, everybody. I do see a couple messages here in the chat. I'm just trying to catch up. Someone has asked for some really practical ideas for everyday examples of uses for AI. I'm going to send a link in the chat in just a moment, but I'm also going to address that verbally as well. I'll say, I have seen teams, and I have encouraged my own team to use ChatGPT. And before ChatGPT was released, we were on Jasper, which is another tool that's been out there for a while. We use it just like any other marketing communication professional to help us with ideation. Specifically subject line generation, right? We come up with a couple ideas, we drop it into ChatGPT, we give it context about what it is we're talking about, and we ask it to iterate. Same with actually digital ads too. So I have been, we just talked about Copilot and BoltBot. As we've released these, we've been developing some digital ads to help support the release. And the first thing I did was go to ChatGPT, drop a ton of information about these two features, and gave it the guidelines around what best practices are for digital ad headlines. And then I asked it to come up with 10 variations. Those first 10 were fine. I said, you know what? I know the audience I'm talking to. We're a good crowd. Like, we like a good laugh. Make these funnier, right? Or like connect this to like superheroes, or like try and include a cat joke. Like, I know my audience, like I know what makes me laugh, what catches my attention. So over the course of a few minutes, right, I was able to continue to prompt ChatGPT to get me better and better and better headlines, which then Dan and I were able to take to our team, and we were able to ideate and iterate from there. And I think the list we ended on was definitely inspired by ChatGPT, but had that extra layer of, just really good human thought and creativity behind it too.
Yeah, I love that. Just to add to that too, I might have mentioned this at the offset of our conversation, but I did a podcast series with Artis, who's the CEO at Element451. And it's like a 4-part series on ChatGPT and generative AI and how higher ed is beginning to use it. And in episode 2, I believe it is, which I'll just link here. We can send it up in a follow-up email as well. Artis and I actually walked through like what Mallory was just talking about, her team walking through. We literally did that on the podcast, where we started with a general prompt. And then I was like, okay, Artis, how could we write this in a tone that a 17-year-old would love, right? And then we in real time, we walk you through how this works. So go ahead, and if you haven't streamed this series already, I recommend doing so. Watch it on YouTube too, if you want to kind of see the prompts in real time. But this is a great, again, starter kit, if you will, for folks that want some very practical ideas on how to get started. I'd highly recommend tuning into this 4-part series.
I find that's a good base for any starting point. Anytime you have to write something for marketing, you might as well ask ChatGPT to write it first, because it might be good, or it might just be a good kicking off point. It's just easier to react to something than it is to start from scratch often, or at least accelerates the process. So anytime you have to write something, it's kind of like, hey, ChatGPT, you want to give this a swing? Boom. And then it takes a swing. You're like, not bad. Let me modify a little bit and bam, But
also, to Mallory's point too, just to reiterate this one more time, like the number of times you talk to a school, or I'll talk to a school, or I have someone on my podcast and you're talking to a VP of marketing and they're talking about just how long it takes, right, to essentially repackage content, right? You spend so much time maybe producing like this beautiful report, right, where you put all this time into coming up with like this great theme for your fall open house, and then finding by the time you've created that core piece of premium content, right, you're exhausted, you're done, and you can leverage a tool like ChatGPT to help take that really meaty piece of content and give you zillions of ideas in literally seconds. Not just ideas, it'll rewrite it in tweets, right? Hey, this is the topic of this thing, this is what we discussed. Can you give me 20 tweets that I can give to my Marcom team, right, to be able to promote this effectively? And this funny thing happens, right? When you're trying to get people to promote content for you, it's always so difficult. You're trying to get your team to share stuff on social, so difficult, right? If you empower them with 5 to 10 pretty quippy things that they could use, right, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, right, whatever it is, on Instagram to promote your open house, all of a sudden they're more interested in posting because you've done the work for them, right? You've given them copy that, again, they can tweak, they can make it, they can make it Mallory-esque or Dan-esque, but you've done the heavy work, the hard work of giving them something to work with. So, if you're not using these tools, if you've never experimented with them, my one homework assignment, my one request is find 5 minutes today, tomorrow, go to I can't remember the exact URL. I think it's chat.openai.com. Yeah, chat.openai.com, and just play around, just have some fun. There you go. Perfect, Mallory.
It's always up in my browser, so I just, just had to go to the right tab. This was awesome, Zach. Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you and report out on these findings, and also talk a little bit about AI. For the folks who are still here with us, I did share in the chat to a link to a collection of AI resources, quick blog posts, all the way to webinars and downloads. So that podcast series is in there as well.
Wonderful. Yes, appreciate you all. Thank you so much for your time. Mallory, Dan, thanks for joining me. Thank you for all the really the pioneering work that you all are doing at Element. It's really helpful and encouraging to see just the incredible amount of time and effort you guys are putting into improving the product and making it more accessible to higher ed marketers and admissions professionals. Thank you everyone for joining us. Again, expect a quick follow-up email after this call, but then the full report, recordings, slide decks to come early next week.
Thank you.